Welcome to episode 7 of the Toronto Untitled Blue Jays podcast. I'm Steve Artabello with Anthony Harris and Theo Giordano. You can find us, our website online at torontountilt.com. Easy for me to say. You can find the video for this podcast on YouTube because we're back and we haven't been deleted again yet.
2 weeks in a row.
Take that, YouTube. Yes, we're still here. Please don't delete us. You can find us at YouTube, Toronto Untilt. You can find us on Twitter, Toronto Untilt. And, of course, the audio of this podcast can be found everywhere. It can be found on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Bleaker, Anchor, all of the things. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell your friends. The week started well, but it didn't end well. Theo, you want to go over a bit of a summary?
Yeah, so we'll get quickly through what happened. First series of the week against the Yankees. Another important series. We've kind of had two series so far against the Yankees. Both we looked at as measuring stick series. Turns out the Yankees are dog shit right now, losing to everybody, including us. We took 2 or 3 from them. Lost the first game 3-1. Robbie Ray looked okay. The offense just didn't get going. Game 2, offense got clicking against Tyone. And another good Ryu start. He got into the 7th inning again. And then game 3, late scratch for Stripling, but Zoich was able to, do enough to get us through. And Bo Bichette with 2 home runs was able to win the game. So a good opening series of the week. Looked like it was gonna be a positive week, but again, going into Kansas City, and it was a shit weekend.
Before we get to Kansas City, though, Jay Bruce was apparently so demoralized to just losing to the Blue Jays that he decided to retire. And today, the Yankees left him on their active roster, even though he was. I don't understand how that happens. I don't understand the Yankees. I don't know what's going on there. But the fact that they are flailing and having bad things happen just is awesome. So yeah, just wanted to point that out that Jay Bruce was retired. But
when you try to ring chase and fucking you have to play, that's kind of what happened.
That's Blue Jay great, Jay Bruce. The guy we were supposed to get every offseason.
Every single offseason. Like, it was ridiculous. Oh, no, not even just offseason, like in season. They were going to trade for Jay Bruce. Like, when he was actually good offensively with the Reds. And then it was just like, well, they're going to sign him. And it was just like, why? Well, they'll trade for his contract. Again, why? Yes.
Blue Jays great, Jay Bruce.
Back to Theo, though, on to Kansas City.
Kansas City series we all thought was going to be the series to get us kind of going, feeling good after the Yankees. Come up with just a shit display, a feeling of like last year's Blue Jays team with terrible defense. Biggio, Gurriel, didn't give Kay any help in his first start, even though he wasn't very good. Jays lost 7-5 game 1. Game 2 was doubleheader, first leg of the doubleheader. Steven Matz is incredible. Best trade we've made in a long time.
Got him for nothing. Although he should have, attempted to finish that first game of that doubleheader, but I'll get to that.
Cruising through 6 innings, 80 pitches, not good enough for Charlie. We'll get into that later. And then in the second half doubleheader, pretty much a game we felt like we were punting. A bullpen day after your bullpen's been decimated. The Jays go with a bullpen back-to-back on a doubleheader.
You've gotten lucky with Tommy Milone. You've gotten lucky with 6 innings of Tommy Milone. Remember how I said I wanted 0? Well, you had 6 innings, and they were pretty good. And now you got to see what Tommy Milone is.
And thank God Matz didn't blow up, because I don't know what we would have done if we had to do 2 days back-to-back games with all the bullpen. But Jays lost the game 3-2. The bullpen kind of kept them in. And even with the injuries with the Jays bullpen, they've been keeping them in games. It's more the offense that's the issue. And then today, nothing. Literally nothing on offense. Robbie Ray tight-roping all day. Then do shit. DJ Zoid's head of the pen. Gave up the home run.
That was a great decision. Yeah, don't know what that is. Like, yeah. You know what? Here, we'll throw it to you first, just since you kicked it off. You told us what was going on. Like, what was your takeaway from this week at the moment?
Well, the injuries. It feels like everything in this bullpen is getting hurt. Even this rotation now with Stripling. And the Jays are, just trying to piece together games. And for the most part, it's not going too horribly with the bullpen. Some updates on some players.
Surprisingly
good. Go down.
Like, the bullpen's been surprisingly good. Like, yeah, like we have some positive news with some of the guys that went down. But like everybody that they kind of run through there seems to be all right until they start taking starters and making them relievers. Unless you're Tanner Rourke, which that worked today. But That worked today, but I don't know the thought process behind that. I don't get it.
Leaving Phelps in and putting Rourke, you weren't a fan of that?
So me and Tony thought Phelps was coming into the game.
Yeah,
we were fairly certain we saw the gate open. Tony, am I wrong there?
The gate was open. I'm like, yeah, well, I guess Tanner Roark a situational reliever. But then no, they left Roark in there. I don't know what happened there. I guess we'll find out later potentially.
It worked, but
Phelps is the guy like that you bring in for those situations. I guess they wanted the length with Roark because he went the next inning too, but that's just very unorthodox. And
you brought in the two length guys and then felt like I don't get it. I don't get it. But yeah, back to the injuries.
So some good news on Pearson. Looks like he's starting to get closer to returning. Romano, they should be back. Romano and Chapman look like they're going to be back after their DL stints, which should be soon.
Yeah.
Hatch a little bit further away. And Biggio.
What's going on?
I think he's good, but I don't know.
They acted like it was no big deal, and he sat the last 3 games except for his pinch run appearance where he got caught stealing.
Yeah, and it's like he couldn't even play defense. So clearly the hand isn't right enough where he could have even played first base there. Like it sums up with him. Hopefully he did take a ball off the hand. Like hopefully nothing's broken and it's a pain thing where it's just like, okay, it's a bruise. It's going to take a few days, but if it was broken, it would be like, it would be weird for him to be in if it was broken. So, well, if it was broken and then he's not on the IL, I'll get right to it. It's just like it just comes to all of the terrible decision making. Like they have 2 guys hitting, so it amplifies everything. Like that's one of the biggest problems. Like this is my takeaway for this week is they have 2 guys that can hit at the moment, and it's Bo and it's Vlad. Vlad being like MVP quality and one of the most dangerous hitters in baseball is very nice. But when there's only him and Bo, there's problems. And Grichuk was nice, but he's starting to cool off, and Rowdy's kind of heating up. But you know what I mean? The Semien at bats aren't as great as when we first talked about them. He's striking out a lot. Theo brought that up, but when we were talking, he's K'ing a ton.
He's the anti-leadoff hitter, and for some reason he's going to be there until Springer's there. We're not going to.
Yeah. And Springer, again, like talking about the injuries, and Springer's still not back. And we didn't think he'd be back because of the oblique. But then they said it was the hamstring or the quad. It's tight. Like, we don't know what's going on there. And we kind of, the offense needs him. So we kind of need to know what's going on with him to see if he's going to be back to help this team. And then on top of that, man, like all of that just gets amplified because you don't have the offense. Charlie's got to make decisions that matter. And just like, I get it. Matz, like he was cruising. He had a no hitter. And then, okay, there were a couple of base runners in that 6th inning, but he's had 80 pitches. Like you have to, like you're in a doubleheader with a bunch of these bullpen injuries like Theo was talking about. Like, do you guys understand what the fuck was going on there? Like, why do you not at least let Matz come out? At least let him come out in the 7th to try to finish it. Like, that was my biggest beef.
I think it's just part of them being like, oh, we got to be safe with him. We don't want to push him too hard in April. But, like, the bullpen situation, you got to save your arms as much as possible. That's a thing going on in baseball in general, where it's just we got to get to the bullpen. And that, as a result, you tax your bullpen, and then they struggle.
Why is he warming up 3 guys?
That's another thing. It's decisions. Like, now those guys, like, you saw it today in the bullpen usage. Are those guys down because they have been warmed up a couple of times and didn't get into, you know what I mean? Like the way that guys are being used, the way that they're getting up and down, the way that he's warming up guys. And like you saw it with Romano, and it was like, why was he up as many times as he was, considering how few times he came into games? Hey, and then he got hurt. Like, what the fuck is going on with Charlie? And then you have him bunting on 2 strikes with Danny Jansen earlier in the season. And you guys told me that Jonathan Davis took the bullet on this one for bunting with 2 strikes again. But that shouldn't even be considered. Like, think about it. Who bunts with 2 strikes other than a pitcher in the National League?
He also hit a home run, a big home run the game before.
Yeah, but Jonathan Davis has made way too many decisions. Jonathan Davis has made way too many bad decisions too to justify being the 26th man on the roster. Like, that's also been a problem. Like, there's been the bad defense, like decision making actually just kind of all the way around. Just like some of the defensive plays, just like the lack of concentration defensive plays, because it's not. It's just there's a lot, you know what I mean? Like, but Charlie not being able, like, we talked about this. We kind of broached the fact that none of us really like Charlie's decision making, and it was really highlighted this week. You know what I mean? Like, it just again, and you saw it. Yeah, Tanner Rourke worked, but why was TJ Zoic? Like, I guess you were going for the length. You know what I mean? But then you just pulled him, and then you went with Tanner Rourke, but Phelps was ready because we saw Phelps. Like, I hope we're not going to find out that Phelps was hurt, actually, that he was ready to go and then was hurt. Because, again, me and Tony thought we saw the gate open for him to come into that game, and then Rourke came. Rourke was still pitching.
Like, hopefully it wasn't him, like, going back to the bench, like, because he couldn't get out there.
Exactly.
That's not what happened.
Exactly.
But the way they managed the bullpen there, we were talking earlier that it was like they were down by 10. Bringing in these long arms in the 7th, 8th inning of a game when it was really 2-0, or it was 0-0.
It was 0-0, and then you brought in Zoic, and then it was just, you know what I mean? Single, no doubt home run, double in 3 pitches, and you're just like, okay. And then the rest of that inning was basically a messy guy on third base the entire time. Like, he got out of it, but kind of losing faith in TJ Zoic as a right, like and oh god, there's some issues, man. Like, Tony, do you want to get to your takeaway, or that we can, I guess, kind of continue talking about some of these issues? Because
well,
there's some problems.
There's so many issues. A lot of them boil down to injuries. Like, Zoic isn't a guy would have been in there normally. It's like this injuries have been a big problem, and another big problem is our guy Kevin Biggio, who was our darling. You know, he was so great. I'm going to read some stats for you, okay?
Timeout.
Average what?
Timeout. No one. It wasn't our darling. You think with us?
He was like one of our young boys.
Kind of agreed with you. Like,
I mean, I've been the critic here.
Okay.
But I'm going to go into some stats here. Okay. Average exit velocity, 26th percentile. Max exit velocity, 17th percentile. Hard hit percentage, 13% percentile. Okay. These are last year's numbers. Okay. Those aren't this year's numbers.
I like how you did that.
You weren't expecting that.
That was like a newscaster there.
Yeah. Those were last year's numbers. And this year's numbers are pretty similar, except the exit velocity is somehow like 51st percentile. So it's a little higher, but it's still, everything else is around the same. But the big difference is the walks is down slightly from top percentile to like 72%. See, these things, just slight drops. And we see how bad Kevin Biggio has been this year. But we can still hope that this will turn around. Hopefully, you know, it's still early in the year. Positive regression is going to happen, hopefully. But, you know, this production, it's a big we need him to be better, especially with all the other injuries we've had. And
the defense, like, he hasn't really worked at third base. Like, early in the season, we're like, wow, he makes a lot of the plays, but like, okay, his arm is bad. Like, he does not have an arm. But okay, he's getting all these plays. He's looking like a third baseman.
He's serviceable.
And you're seeing him miss plays now. It's just, this team needs to get healthy. I guess that is really what it comes down to. You know what I mean? Because all the shit I'm complaining about is really just magnified by the fact that you got guys kind of playing out of position and the order isn't as deep as it's supposed to be. And now you have the bullpen that's all messed up, so you kind of have to mix and match, even though the way you mix and match made no fucking sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, all of the, and again, it's like, we talked about how much we all kind of have problems with Charlie's decision making, but all of this is just magnified by the fact that 2 dudes are hitting. And all of these injuries are also leading to it. So it's, you know what I mean? Like, it is positive that you beat the Yankees twice. Like, that's great. You know what I mean? Like, you've had good series against the Yankees, but you've also looked bad against the Texas Rangers and the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah. Well, the Royals are somehow looking, they're 10-5 somehow, but the Rangers have been a bad team overall.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing about Biggio?
Yeah, go for it.
You remember before he was up, there was all these articles. People were saying how your value for Biggio is at its highest point right now, and it's only going to get lower. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little bit nervous. That's
see, and the problem is his issue was always hitting velocity, but he walked so much and he played a bunch of different positions. So like he was useful. And when you see him, I guess I guess it's second base too. You could move him around in different shifts, and you don't like you're not noticing that his arm, because he doesn't have to have a big arm to just be in the right position and make routine plays, like the right fundamental plays. And he was the same kind of thing in a corner outfield spot. He just made fundamental plays. He wasn't spectacular at it. The fact that he needs to do things that are, you know what I mean? He needs to do things that are like, he needs to make wow moments, like plays that pop, and he's not that type of player. Like that's what you kind of need at third base. You need someone with a big arm or the type of athleticism and agility to get to all of these balls, right? And he just isn't really that. You know what I mean? And I think we're seeing the fact that maybe everyone calling for him to be like the super utility player, maybe that is what he is. Maybe that is what he should be. You know what I mean? Like, maybe he should be playing first, second, left, right, third base, like randomly. But
yeah, like some of the mistakes were just fundamental though. In that game, it just everything fell apart for him. And yeah. I want to put it as like a one game. You know, he had a bad game, but that first one where he couldn't keep that ball in the infield, he couldn't defend the line. The guy should have been at first base. Instead, he gets to second because you don't put your body in front of the ball. That's something I will never forgive, ever. You can't give him second base. That's garbage. Like, you might miss a grounder. That's a physical error. But that's a mental error to not block a ball no matter whatever it takes.
Yeah, the way he tried to, like, slide and just pick it. Like,
yeah, that's lazy.
Yeah. And again, you don't have the fact that he doesn't have the arm to bail him out. He can't take the extra time to get a hold of the ball. Like, so he has to start making those type of plays, right? He had, like, in order for him to make that play, he pretty much has to make that pick play the way he was trying to do it. He can't do the route. You know what I mean? The more that I'm starting to talk this out and think about it, the reason that he's making some of these mistakes, I think, is because he's not a third baseman. He doesn't really have the arm for it, right? Because think about it. Think about that play. That should be a routine. Like, he should have blocked it exactly. And then again, if you can't throw him, you can't get him out. Well, you haven't let the ball get through you. But because he knows he can't throw the guy out if he blocks it at all, he's trying to make that pick play so that he can at least turn and throw and maybe have a chance at it. Like, that's kind of a problem.
You got to change your priorities in that situation. Like, you're not going to get him out. You just got to block the ball.
Yeah. The more I think about it, like, just he's not really a third baseman.
Yeah. Breaking news.
Right? Like, this is like, Semion's been great at second base, but like,
I want to say something Steve said before. Sorry to interrupt.
What?
You said you wanted Vlad at third. That's how bad it's been. We're like, maybe back there, you know?
Oh, see, I hadn't brought it up because you shooed that down pretty hard. I did agree with you because before when we were talking at our prep for this, I said I wanted to see Vlad there because he's looked so good at first base. He's looked so good at the plate. He just looks so good. He looks so athletic. You saw him run. Like, Vladdy, like, the way he stretched that into a double yesterday in the double header, like the one where he stretched into a double header, and then he stretched it into a double, and then he managed to score on the sac fly. Like, Vlad's always had an arm, so it just makes me interested. And if Rowdy can get hitting and you can move Rowdy, and then it allows you to move Biggio around, like, it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I just think of Edwin Encarnacion in my head. I'm like, just don't fuck with him. If he's finally feeling good and he's learning the position now,
and that's why I didn't want to bring it up, because you're right there. Because in the perfect situation, right? Like, I'm desperate, but in the perfect situation, if you could move him to third and you could have Rowdy and he starts to hit because he's hitting the ball hard, like, right? You can see it. It's just, Theo, you're right. We've seen this happen before. Like, where a guy's good at a place, you should probably just leave it.
It was more of a condemnation on Biggio and how bad he's been and how anything we're looking at right now could be a solution. But
well, that's what I mean. I'm in desperation mode where I'm just like, can we try this? Like, and Rowdy's hit a couple of baseballs at a couple of games. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to extrapolate and be like, well, when he wasn't hitting, he was still like top and exit velocity. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, I'm starting to talk myself into him because of this Biggio situation. It's turning into a problem at third base. Like, it's almost turning into. Remember when Josh Donaldson couldn't throw the ball at third base, and it was just an issue. It was just that elephant in the room that no one really wanted to talk about. Like, this is starting to snowball. Like, because it's not just Biggio; it's defense on the whole, and some of the problems that are happening. And then you also look and you're wondering, like, are guys trying to make additional plays because they're thinking, right? Like, is Bo having issues because he's thinking he has to cover for Kevin? You know what I mean? Is all of this kind of domino stuff because you have these problems? And then again, maybe if the offense is going and everyone's hitting, they also just feel better in the field, right? Like, there's so many different issues that are all kind of. And it's also early in the season. So as we're all like I'm yelling about Charlie, that's something that I just very vehemently believe. This is also super small sample size. Like in the biggest Wilnerism that we all know, like our fantasy baseball team, our fantasy baseball league, it's early.
Like, Biggio's never played third base full time before. So, I'm talking
Right?
into just one game where, like, just figure it out, move forward, learn from it.
Not.
I've been the one saying that. You guys are not. I'm the one saying, let's take it easy at third base and figure it out. I'm just saying
you're more offensively. Okay.
Yeah.
Offensively, yeah.
I'll give you that.
Thank you.
Yeah, like I'm just my worry with this team is because we're seeing a lot of issues we thought we were going to see kind of at the beginning of the season. You know what I mean? We looked at this bullpen and we're like, it's going to be good. And there's been a lot of different names than we thought. And Kirby Yates didn't even have an appearance, but it's been good. And we looked at this offense and we're like, if they're healthy, they're going to be good. And they haven't been healthy. And then we looked at this rotation and we're like, there might be issues. And it hasn't, like, Matz has been great and Ryu's been an ace. There's really no other way to put it. But the rotation has been an issue. You know what I mean? Robbie Ray's been fine in his first 2 starts, but you walk 6 guys and you've got the tightrope like today.
Holy shit!
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine, but you pitch like that more often than not, and you're not. You know what I mean? Your ERA is going to balloon. It's not going to be 0 after a game like that.
We're basically saying, like, if we're going to be legit, we have to bring someone else in, and depending on how his offense. Because remember 2015. We were sitting here with an amazing offense who was unlucky, a team that was unlucky, who should have been way better in their record. If we're at the deadline and this offense, it's going to click. I'm not going to say it's not going to click. But if there's guys like Biggio who aren't turning it around and we're sitting there like, you know what, this offense isn't as good as we thought it was. Are we going to make those moves? Like, that's questions you got to ask.
And it's just, that's the thing. We don't know what the solutions are because it's like, well, who are you going to call up? You call up Jordan Groshans? Yeah, he's super exciting. He's a highly ranked prospect. He's been hurt a lot and hasn't actually played a lot of minor league games. You know what I mean? You're going to call up Austin Riley? Yeah, he's the team's top prospect offensively, but he's played 0 minor league games. You know what I mean? Like, because he was drafted last year and was only at the alternate site. Like, a lot of the super exciting guys that you would like to see, 1, are far away, and 2, they don't have a position. Like, they're supposed to be shortstops that might be third baseman. Austin Riley might be in the outfield. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, we got Austin Martin. Austin Riley's the Braves third baseman, left fielder. Austin Martin. But you see what I'm getting at, right? Like, there's no a guy to pull up right now.
I have another question for you, Steve.
Yep.
Danny Jansen.
Oh,
is the year Danny Jansen still on, or are we kind of?
He's not playing.
He can't even. And he can't even hit the ball hard. He's getting some meatballs that he's hitting directly into the ground.
He hit one of the wall, I think, a few days ago, but everything else is ground out.
Yeah, and of course, Danny Jansen was gonna have the home run robbed from him because he cannot catch a break. Like, he cannot catch a break. The defense is fine, but like my bold prediction was that Danny Jansen was going to be pretty much major league average, and because he was a catcher, that was going to be fine. And yeah, like, at this point, you got to give Kirk run. You got to give him more leeway. Like, Danny's always going to catch Ryu because he seems to be his personal catcher, but.
And once again, these are issues you have when the rest of the team isn't hitting. If Danny Jansen's the only guy not hitting, then no one gives a shit.
And here's the thing, like, we talked about this before. I haven't said it yet, like, actually, while we've been recording. Think about this team when Springer's back. Because if you go Springer, like, think about this, just in your head, Springer, Bo, Vlad. Yeah, like, it's going to be pretty hard to keep all three of those guys off the bases. And then you just need someone to drive one of them in. You know what I mean? And Lourdes was starting to look like maybe he was going to figure it out. And Rowdy's hitting the ball. You know what I mean? So it's maybe if Semien gets dropped in the order, you know what I mean? It's just
Semien's perfect for the 6th spot. If you see him batting 6 with him pop, like you feel good. The Richard spot where he was before he got bumped up, like that's perfect for Semien.
Yeah.
It's just that I feel like whenever Springer is in the lineup, Montoya's going to put him first. Just because of the veteran stuff, all that shit. But
that's why we were excited about the team, because George Springer's an elite guy to bring in to make everybody better, and he hasn't played yet. So
and again, a lot of this is just like it's early, and they've had a really unlucky start. Like this is shitty with the way the injuries have happened, and like to have this, like you have Springer. He's, he seems to fit in. All the kids love him. He looked good in spring, and then at the end of spring, he has the oblique injury. But it's okay, which none of us believed. And then he's going to be back. And then he had a setback, but it's a completely different injury, and now we just don't hear any updates. Like he just needs to get back. You know what I mean? Like it's early in the season. I don't know. I'm kind of just I guess we've kind of, figured out. It's early in the season. They've got a lot of injuries, and I think George Springer, like again, he could solve a lot of this because you start getting the confidence. Like you see this a lot when guys have confidence at the plate, they take it into the field. Look at Vladdy. Vladdy right now, I think Vladdy believes he can make any play. Like literally anything. Like, is it a fucking 17 hopper? Yeah, he's gonna pick that clean. Like, if he's up to bat, yeah, he's gonna hit it 450 feet. Like Vladdy's in the zone.
And it isn't like last year where Vlad can make any play. Let's dive for a ball at second base. Like it's smart any play he's making.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like you can tell that he's just kind of got it going on. And you can see like if that starts to spread through the lineup, because think about it. Like we haven't even mentioned the fact that Teoscar's got COVID, and he was the team's best hitter? Like was he their best hitter last year? If not number 2?
Probably number 2.
So
probably Bo first.
Bo went through a kind of a struggle,
and Bo didn't play that many games. Yeah, for the guy who played, played the most, like Teoscar was kind of their guy offensively. So
yeah,
and there were still concerning things before he got hurt. Like my big thing was that he could lower his strikeout rate just based on the fact that it was so high that
we talked about that exactly. Like, it was too high.
And even this year, it's still like the same kind of thing. And we need a lot of things to start breaking. And I know it's early, and we got a lot of, the rest of the AL East stinks right now, except the Red Sox.
That's the thing. And okay, I'm gonna come out right now. JD Martinez. I actually said that I thought JD Martinez was gonna be done. Like not exactly Chris Davis bad, but I did use that as he was done. Like he looked lost.
Yeah, you did.
JD Martinez is good. JD Martinez is good at baseball. He's hitting baseballs very hard. It's a problem. And JD Martinez being really good. Remember when I was like, well, if he sucks, like there's a lot of ifs other than Xander Bogaerts. Well, if he's MVP level JD Martinez and Xander Bogaerts is still going to he's hitting 400 now because he's a 300 hitter. But I said, you know what I mean? And then Verdugo's healthy. And now you can start to look at that team and you're like, that. Well, now because Devers is the 5th or 6th guy that has to hit. So then Devers is down the order and Devers can relax. And then again, as you push guys down the order, I think it's frustrating to see them winning right now, but I still think long term that pitching.
They're currently being no hit through 2 2/3. So
that's what their pitching staff is.
It's over.
Kopech is gonna.
Tanner Hawk is actually like one of their best pitchers, and they keep yo-yoing him between the alternate trading site and the big leagues, which is hilarious.
Well, that's the big difference with them is they're like league average pitching right now. We expected them to be at the bottom of the league.
I think is good. Exactly. That's going to even out. And Eovaldi is not going to pitch 200 innings because we always talk about this. Nate Eovaldi, when he's healthy, is great because he throws hard, and then he's not healthy. That's what he's always done.
He's going to be a guy you can count on? No.
Exactly. We've seen this story before. Like, and again, do they have relievers? Sure, it's worked okay, but you really think those guys are going to close out games? You know what I mean? So it's
we got one more Jace thing. I don't think Trent Thornton. Are we going to do the thing with him and Pearson?
Okay. So Theo talked about the injuries for anyone who's wondering what Theo means by the thing, because we were talking about this when we were prepping for the podcast. They did mention when they were in bringing Pearson back, that the idea is to bring him back as a starter, but they will make that decision based on what's best for the team and Pearson at the time that he's ready. And I said that I'm terrified because that sounds like, if you've watched these games this week, they've mentioned, I don't know if it was today or if it was yesterday in the second half of the doubleheader, they were talking about Trent Thornton, that they were trying to stretch him out at the big league level and that we might see him start at some point. And after seeing TJ Zoik used, and then you burn Tanner Rourke, so he's not going to start, even like you don't make that an option because he's been burnt. Are we going to see Trent Thornton pitch like 3 or 4 innings and then see Nate Pearson piggyback off the back of him, and that's how they try to stretch out Nate Pearson? I pray not. I don't know what you guys think about that, but I pray that's not what you're doing with Nate.
I don't want that. Maybe like once, but like it's okay for Trent to be ready to go. That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't want him taking away from Nate.
Exactly. I think that's an issue. You know what I mean? Like, maybe if it's to get Nate into the up faster, like maybe Nate's only got 60 pitches. You know what I mean? And then his next appearance where he starts, he can throw 80. So maybe he goes 5 innings, but he can still throw 80 or 85. Like, that's the only way I think that's acceptable. You guys agree? Because that's the only way I think that's acceptable, because you can't fuck right. Like, we talked about, Vladdy has to be what Vladdy is right now for this team to be good. And the other shoe to drop there was Nate Pearson had to be what everyone thought he was going to be. So you can't be fucking around with Nate Pearson pitching 3 innings at the big league level, like in a piggyback situation.
Yeah, treating him like Thomas Hatch. Like, that's what we did with him last year. He's
got to be ready. Like, you have to have him stretched out and ready to be Nate Pearson and go deep. Like, and pitch at least 6 innings. You can't be, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, especially with the way this pitching staff is right now. Like, you need that. That has to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. We need the upside of Nate in the rotation because he's the stud. He's the real deal. That's what it's supposed to be. So
that's what he's supposed to be. And if his team's going to go to the heights that everyone wants to see them go to, he has to be that. And Vladdy's living up to his end of the bargain. So now we need to see Nate do it. It's kind of just simple. We said it wasn't fair, but it's just plain and simple. That's what has to happen.
It's their job.
Yeah, exactly.
Telling them be good at baseball, Vladimir Guerrero.
I mean, with a name like Vladimir Guerrero.
That's what he's paid to do.
If your name is Vladimir Guerrero, you're probably good at baseball. Probably. There's been 2 of them, and one of them is in the Hall of Fame.
You got 0 hits today, though, guys.
Oh, you think you down on Vladdy, Theo?
Kidding.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought.
The only guy who's just like supremely positive on this team, him and Ryu and Matz, and the rest is just like, holy fuck, what are we doing?
I know, it's frustrating.
What do you think happens? Are we done with topics? I was
actually going to ask. No, I was going to ask if there was anything you guys wanted to get to.
How do you think this week goes? We got the Red Sox and Rays on the road, which is not fun.
Yeah, and a couple of off days, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the pitching staffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they only got 2 games in Boston, so they got the Monday and the Thursday off. So they could theoretically go with just the 4 guys, but who are the 4 guys? Like, Soich might not be the guy.
I don't think. Well, yeah, we talked about this when we were watching the game. Is I don't know how much longer I can believe in TJ Zoik. Like, the increased velocity had me intrigued. So did that first start. And the Yankees, like Theo said, look like horseshit. So the fact that he did well against them, and it wasn't even that well, like he still had issues. He just navigated it kind of all right.
We'll learn quick. We just drop players so quickly on this podcast. Like, one bad start, and it's like, all right.
Well, no, it's like TJ Zoik's the type of dude where you're like, I'm kind of interested, and then like you see that, and you're like, oof.
I'm just talking about me specifically because the Calvin. I tried to give Anthony so much shit. I'm like, you know what, Anthony, you might have just fixed him with your rant at him last week, and then the rest of the week has just been like, oh shit.
Same with Rowdy too.
Well, Rowdy.
I'm trying. Rowdy, I'm trying to talk myself into that.
And the Gritchuck thing, we made the apology in the lot. I think it was the first episode, or maybe it was the second.
Well, the first episode, we're like, we'll see if this happens, and then it kept happening, and we're like, hey, it's happening, and then he kind of slowed down, and we're like, uh-oh.
I will retract that, and I won't feel bad about it if I have to.
Shame on you guys.
He's on the hot seat as far as me retracting the apology because
did not have a good game today. A good day at the plate. 0 for 4.
Fucking too fast. He hit a 3-0 count. Too fast.
That was the ugly. Okay, that was the ugliest at bat we were watching that all together as a podcast as we were prepping for today, and watching him get to 3-0 and then watch 3 straight fastballs in the middle of the plate, like middle down, middle up in it, like still in the middle quadrant of the plate. And he took one, which, okay, it's 3-0. You can take one. Okay. And then you swung through the 93 and 94 like they were 102.
Randall Grichuk gonna let you down every time. That's
just too much.
Yeah,
frustrating. But yeah, this week's a big week because it's in Division 2. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, guys can get hot, and then hopefully we get a George Springer update because that's kind of necessary. Like,
could be in Tampa, is what they're saying. He could be there for that.
Really?
That's their optimism.
Well, they said he definitely not on the road trip, but when they get back, they got back home. That's what they were thinking. But again,
oh yeah, Tampa technically is home.
Right, exactly. So I haven't heard any updates in that. Like Tony's right, that's the thing that they said, but I haven't heard. You know how they updated everyone today about the pitching? I didn't hear anything about George Springer. So we shall see.
Yep.
Anything else you boys wanted to get to, or is that it for this week?
No, if we go 1-4 this week, we got to start panicking now.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. It's still early because again, like that, as negative as we got at points today, like the overall thing is it's early.
And there's
all of these still, exactly, and like again, we pointed out like injuries and guys playing all over the place, and everything has kind of just stacked. You know what I mean? It's been a domino situation where everything's kind of made everything else a little bit worse, and you hope that once it starts to swing in the other direction and guys start coming back, that it'll be a little bit better. Because even with the injuries and guys not hitting, the bullpen being as ridiculous as it was when Merriweather and Romano and everyone was together, like the team was still winning. And here's the thing. It's this far in, we're complaining about everything, and they're 2 games under 500. You know what I mean? Like they could have been back at 500 today if Charlie, didn't manage like a blowout after 2-0. But again,
Well, how do you win when you score 0 runs? I'm just doing that.
That's also true though. That's facts. Here's the thing though. Here's the thing. That's facts. Because as much as I want to rip on Charlie, they scored 0 runs, which you cannot win while doing. It's impossible.
That's a fact.
Facts. Big facts. I think that's it, boys.
Yeah, we covered all the stories, all the headlines.
Well,
see you next week.
This is episode 7 of the Toronto Untitled Blue Jays podcast. I'm Steve Artabello with Anthony Harris and Theo Giordano. You can find us on our website, torontountilt.com. You can find us on YouTube, Toronto Untilt. You can find the audio to this podcast, of course, on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Breaker, Bleaker, Anchor, all of the things. Of course, find us on Twitter at Toronto on Tilt, because we do tweet during the games. We retweet ourselves. You can follow us as well. But until next week, see y'all later.